Hello, everybody. Welcome back or welcome to the Sound Mind Strategies podcast. How are all you lovely people doing? And how are you doing? My co-host, my wife.
I'm doing pretty good considering.
Pretty good?
Yes, double pretty good. Considering everything kind of going on and almost in the 40th week, the final countdown of little baby B being born. So I feel very blessed that I'm still like moving about with ease and just kind of living life pretty like normally prior to baby. So it feels
Other than just a bump, right?
Yeah, exactly. Other than just the baby bump.
That's my obviously very minimal, like experience, and I don't know what you're feeling, but that's definitely what it shows. So, definitely looks like you've had a wonderful pregnancy, and yeah, it's been exciting to watch you go through this and to go through it with you. It's been a fun little journey. I mean, and we're definitely kind of right at the cusp of a big page turn, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our next chapter, right?
Just a little bit of transparency. We are recording this a little early than when we normally record our podcast, just because, like you said, we are literally just days away from
baby's arrival.
Actual due date. So I guess with that being said, thanks for tuning in. This is episode number 38. And with that, let's start the show. All right, so this is episode 38, so that marks pretty much full term, right? Full
Yes.
term for you, full term for baby. That's
right there.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to take this opportunity to take a look back. I know we kind of didn't flip through the book like we normally do, like progress, because, well, progress is he's ready. The timer's about
Right.
to ding. So that's pretty much, I think, all that's left.
Yes.
Just waiting for that ding. Let me ask you this, since obviously you're the one doing all the work, right? What are some of the highlights or takeaways from the past 9 months? Like from when we found out to all the way up to now, anything that really stands out or resonates with you?
The highlights or takeaways. I think one thing that comes to mind for me is just showing myself that I am a strong woman. I can persevere through a lot, and I think just going through this whole pregnancy just showed me that I really do have a lot of strengths that I didn't necessarily realize that I had. And not that this has been like an excruciating pregnancy, but just learning a lot about myself, of what I can handle and how I can balance things in life, and just taking breaks when I need to take them, and just really just learning about myself a little bit more has been really neat. And also just having to look more into the future about what it's going to be like to be a mom, and the things that I want to bring forward to ensure that, giving him the best that he can have in life too. So yeah, it's really made me just think a lot about what that looks like, and how I want to show up for the world, and how I want him to.
Yeah. That's so cool that you kind of say some stuff like that about like looking forward about being a mom, and then learning things about yourself. Now, one of the things for me, like obviously having a background in exercise science, physiology, and then the mental stuff too with sports psychology, I've just seen nothing but just, I mean, you have shown how absolutely amazing the human body is. And I think that goes for all women that have carry children, and it's just so cool to see what the human body is capable of. I mean,
Yeah.
whether you have a hard pregnancy or relatively easier pregnancy, I still think it's just so cool to see what, like, in 9 months, we kind of joked about that on how fast and short it kind of seems. But I mean, you literally are growing another human being. And I mean, that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that just shows just like how fast and how amazing things happen. And then to prepare ourselves to, yes, now change how we do things from here. I mean, we kind of
Yeah.
obviously still want to be the same person and do a lot of the same things, but everything carries just that little bit more weight of consequence and responsibility.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. It just shows, it really shows me too about just, not that I was selfish before, but just realizing that, yeah, it's like there's this new human life to be thinking about now. And like you said, the human body is amazing, because I just think about like, I really do feel like the way we eat, the way we treat our bodies has really helped perhaps to make this pregnancy easier for me too. And not that, if you're not eating this certain way or haven't had a background in working out, that it's going to be like horrible, but I do feel like those things that I've done to honor my body have really paid off
Right.
during this whole pregnancy.
100% agree. And I think also on the flip side, just because you do that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And just because you don't
Exactly.
doesn't mean it's going to be hard.
Right.
I think there's varying degrees of that, but looking at it, you definitely set yourself up for success. I mean, you've been a lifelong athlete and you eat very, very well and you pay attention. And not only just food and exercise, I mean, you rest appropriately, you sleep appropriately. I mean, sometimes I think you could do a little bit better.
Yeah, I was like, sometimes I could be better, but
overall sleep hygiene, you take that very serious, and you always have. I mean, you kind of have a pretty strict bedtime. We've kind of always joked, and others have joked, that you're always in bed so early, but it's because it's important to you.
Yes.
And you understand you operate really well early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So going to bed early just sets you up for success on that.
It does.
And you found that you're rewarding yourself by allowing yourself proper rest to be primed when you operate well and when you're kind of ready. Some people are afternoon or evening people, and that's completely fine. I 100% agree that people have different circadian rhythms and times of high energy levels and stuff like that. So do some exploring. If you're not a morning person, don't force yourself to be. But yeah, I mean, kind of flipping back to the whole pregnancy thing, like you honor yourself. That way you can give your son the best.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's quite the neat, responsibility too. And I think about it, to be caring for this little life inside, and just, it's very, very exciting. It's really neat. So
we've made it 9 months.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for the alarm bells, like we said. What's the weirdest things that you've experienced?
The weirdest things. I'll just say it's just kind of I won't even say it's weird. I guess it kind of is. It's just very interesting, when I'm just sitting down and all of a sudden feel this kick to the right side of me, and it's I don't know if it's his elbow, his hand, his foot protruding, but it's just kind of crazy to look down and see that there's a body part that's pressing out on my stomach. So that's kind of crazy to me.
I share in that because just when we're talking or looking and, we're looking at your belly or whatever, and it's a perfectly round little ball. And then all of a sudden this big lump comes out of the side. I'm like, what is that? Is that a foot? Yeah. I think it's a foot kicking out and he's stretching. But
it is pretty neat though, just to think oh my gosh, he's really wiggling around in there. So it's kind of different to see that happening, but really cool at the same time.
Any odd things with strangers or even people you don't have to use names, to say things to you or touch, or ask to touch, anything like that?
I've had very few people ask to touched my belly, like they'd been complete strangers. So that's been kind of nice.
Hopefully that's a trend that's fading away. It's a little creepy.
Yeah, it is a little creepy. I've just had more people just like strike up conversations with me, which has been kind of fun. Just, like, when are you due? And then sometimes in the early stages, I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Just messing with them?
Totally messing with them. And I'm like, no, I'm just teasing. But yeah.
Yeah, because I was always kind of raised and taught and, like, come on, guys. I don't care if she is like water broke and, obviously, pregnant. You don't say
You
anything.
don't ask,
You
yeah.
just say, "Oh, you're pregnant? I couldn't even tell."
Right.
And so there's been a few times where I've been with you too in this grocery store or wherever, and oh, it looks like you're getting ready to pop. Like, come on, use a little tech. Like, obviously you've done really, like you personally have done really well, and the body image thing hasn't been an issue for you. Like, you've just felt great, but you look great. You haven't had like the swelling like people talk about. You haven't had any of that. I mean, like, really, when other people talk to me about your pregnancy, they're like, oh my gosh, like literally, if you're looking at her from any other, if you can't see her belly, if you're just looking at her from behind and if she's walking away or something, like, you'd have no clue.
Yeah.
You walk normal. It's just when you turn, they're like, oh gosh, there's a belly.
There it is.
She's pregnant. But
yeah, that's funny. That's funny. But yeah, it is fun just to have like conversations with random people, just to, I don't know, I like talking to people, so it's kind of fun.
Any strange cravings? You hear the ice cream and pickles or, weird stuff. I don't know, for some reason, when pregnancy gets talked about and cravings, like there's always something in pickles, but Oreos
Right.
and pickles or whatever. But anything like that?
No, I just kind of went on those little kicks every once in a while where I wanted, I was stuck on that vegan mac and cheese for a while. And then for a while I wanted bagels. And so it's been more like carb heavy where I've just craved different like carbs, but it hasn't been anything like obscure of like these two things together that don't match.
I don't know what to make of that, but I'm thinking like, for me, when I'm thinking of cravings, it's like the body's way of getting you to get a certain nutrient or something in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like carbs is just like energy.
Energy. Yeah.
Give me energy.
That's true.
Calories.
That is true. That makes a lot of sense. Because growing another human life takes a lot of your energy.
I mean, I could be completely wrong. I'm definitely not the expert in baby science, but
practically.
So,
but
no, not at all. So I've seen you kind of go through those, like, instead of like that craving, I think one of the things early on in that first trimester, you had some like just things that were definitely not interesting anymore, or more like
versions.
Get that out of here kind of thing. And those were more interesting. Those were things that you really enjoyed
prior.
Just prior, right before we found out you were pregnant.
I know, it was kind of crazy. I was like, ooh, I don't want that anymore. That sounds gross. I'm like, what? You used to love that.
Yeah. And I still loved it, so I had to eat it in solitude.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, go to the other room.
But no, I think it's been fun. Like, I've really, really enjoyed this. Like, if we look back, when we took the 2-week break from recording podcasts, we went and had the baby mood and just spent some time together, and really, I think I highly, highly recommend that.
Yeah,
I know some friends of ours that we found out that they're pregnant, and she's kind of right at that transition of first, second trimester right now. And I know they went and took a little baby moon themselves, and just to get, it's winter here, obviously, where we're at. And so they went to go get some sunshine and just be together. And I think that is so good. I mean, for the body, for the mind, for the spirit and soul, like everything, to get away and really spend some time with your spouse or significant other and really connect. Because if that relationship isn't rock solid, I think adding a child is going to do nothing but test it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Definitely.
And I think you and I are in a really interesting spot in our relationship, having, normally kids come, I don't normally I think most of the time when we hear about couples, get married, have child. It's within a couple years, right? Or a few years, short window. Now we're on the flip side of that. We've been married for 12, coming into our almost 13th anniversary, really, in the next few months.
May.
And so our foundation, just time doesn't mean it's good. Just because we accrue a lot of time together doesn't mean it's solid.
True.
But I think ours is and we spend a lot of time together. But even then, that we took a purposeful time and set intention for us to make sure we were good and to look at things and see what we could improve on, what areas that we needed to put some attention into. And that was, for me, it was monumental. Looking back, that is probably the highlight, not the trip necessarily, although it was fun and where we went, we had a blast, but just connecting on that deeper level and just constantly pushing for new levels of of communication. And just all the things that go into proper relationship work.
Yeah, you're very right. I felt like it really did. It just really gave us that time, like you said, to connect. I think that's so important to do in life because it's always a hustle bustle, I feel like. It's definitely needed.
So I kind of looking at that, you have a kind of, I don't want to say mini topic. We could spend a little time on it, but you have some stuff that's, I thought was really cool when you brought it up and said, hey, I'd like to talk about this on our next episode. It transitions so well into kind of like chapter change for us and, a lot of the things that we've kind of been talking about already. You kind of want to share a little bit about the topic?
Yeah. So it was, it's just funny how some of these topics come to me sometimes and to you as well, I know, but I was just on a walk and thinking about this and came to me of just kind of like, who am I becoming? Who are we becoming as, just as people, and thinking about you and I as becoming as parents, and just was like, who am I becoming? And like, do I really think about this very much? And what does that look like? And so it really just got me really curious to kind of delve in and ask myself some of these questions. Because I know I've read before that, when you ask your brain a question, it's got to answer you. So I'm like, okay, brain, who are we becoming? Let's get this figured out, or at least start contemplating it a little bit more. So there was this quote I found too that I really liked by a gentleman by the name of Dallas Willard, and it said, the most important thing in your life is not what you do, it is who you become. And that just really, I had to let that sink in for a minute. Just okay, it's not all about what I'm doing. It's who I'm becoming, kind of thing. And to be quite honest, when we were talking about this topic, I was like, this is really hard for me because I typically have a hard time looking into the future and thinking about even thinking about goal setting and who I want to be and how I want to show up for the world just feels like, I don't know why. It just feels hard for me. It's just I don't want to think about that. I'm just going to live in the here and now. But be present. Right. But I think there's a lot of value in looking to the future of who you want to become, because there's so many pieces that help shape that for yourself too.
Is it wrong to be present and to be I'll take it day by day and I just want to be here and now and focus on the moment? What's different about that than attending to the future and maybe setting trajectory of what you want to become, who you want to become?
Yeah. I think there's definitely a lot of value in being present and where you're at, and kind of like we've talked before about being present, being where your feet are at, kind of thing. I think that is really important, but I think you can miss a lot when you're not looking at all to see what you want to accomplish in the future too. Because there's certain things I think that you can do today to help prepare you for months and years down the road too.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another way to be fully present and just looking into what you want down the road too. So I think you can be present here and now, but also present and thinking about what you want for the future too.
I think one of the ways that it makes most sense to me is when I'm thinking about being present, I think some of the misconception about being present is just, or rolling with the punches, rolling with the day, going with the breeze, wherever the wind takes me. But being purposeful and setting trajectory is quite different. I can still be present, but just know, like, I'm setting my compass this way. I'm heading in this direction.
Yes.
And that might mean a block headwind for a while.
Very true.
So I'm not necessarily going where the wind takes me. I'm setting my compass. I'm being present and knowing today's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be here and I'm going to devote all my attention to it and not just be willy-nilly and, I'm just floating through the day. It's like I'm taking it moment by moment. Like a lot of times you can get pushed off course if you just are solely looking straight down at your feet instead of
Very true.
picking your head up and say, am I on course? Am I going with intention? Am I going in a purposeful way?
That's very true. Yeah. You miss all the other things going on around you and just, yeah.
I mean, you can still be quite intentional and quite present and in the moment and operate with mindfulness. It's mindfulness, not mindlessness, where I think that's a lot of the misconception is like, oh, empty the mind or just go with the flow.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I think too, when we kind of know what we're wanting for the future too, it can help us determine like who are those people that we need to be surrounding ourselves with, like, are we hanging around people who are growing and wanting to see a difference in their life too? I think that can help influence then who we're spending our time with. And also just kind of helping us stay the course. And I was like, man, have I ever really like thought about like who I want to become in the future? And I don't know, it was kind of like an interesting question for myself. And I'm like, well, you have set goals of like even just career goals of like, I'm here and now I want to go here, and just kind of thinking about who I want to be in these different roles too. So I'm like, I guess I have done it a little bit, but I want to do more of it. But it's kind of like, how do I do that? What does that look like?
Yeah. And I think especially when you and I were talking about that specific piece of, and you were relating it back to, you were working kind of an entry-level position right when you got out of school. And I want to work, and you named the place that you wanted to work. And it was very broad because you just said the organization name.
Exactly.
Like you didn't say what capacity, you didn't say what location, you didn't say, who you'd be working with and what you'd be doing. There was so many things that were just completely unknown.
Right.
You just said, I want to work here.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that's very like black and white and like not very clear. And as you moved forward towards that and you gained more ground and you kept that focus, that was your compass was pointing straight at that organization. Mm-hmm. And then as you move forward, like the picture becomes a little clearer, and then the lines become a little, more definite, and color starts to get added, and it gets very much more vibrant and real. And then it's like, okay, I need to start looking for a position. What am I going to apply for? What location am I going to go to? So like as you start working towards those things, you start to draw in the details, but at first you didn't have all that. You didn't need that. You just needed to set compass pointed at that.
Right. At that like point of where I wanted.
So what am I becoming? Well, I want to work here. And you had maybe a broad idea of in what capacity, but all the details were not there yet.
Yes, which when I look back, I'm like, whoa, that's so crazy for me because I feel like I want all the details before I...
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, and it's like, no, just put your heart on something and set an intention for something and just see where it goes, And I think by doing that, it really did help me become, come to the spot that I am now in life too. So definitely shows me the value of thinking about who I want to become and how I want to show up in the world too. And I think too, for me, something that sometimes can keep me in the past and maybe other people too, or keep me from moving forward is, I think a lot of times it's easy to look at the past to help us define our future. So sometimes looking at like, what you did in the past, like, so we kind of limit ourselves. So what can be possible in the future, right? Like, have you ever done that before?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just if I look back at my own successes or accomplishments or, anything that I've done, sometimes if I'm not being thoughtful and not allowing myself growth and allowing myself new possibility, I'll say, well, I can't do that because I've never done it before. Or that's outside, you give yourself a little growth room, but sometimes it's very limited growth. And you're like, well, that's a pretty big reach,
Yeah.
Just for example, we said we wanted to start bringing guests on to the show, and I had some guests that I really wanted to bring on. I had some possibles, and I had, then there's like, oh, so and so they'd never want to be a guest. I'm not on the top 10 all-time downloads, and I still would love to have a conversation with them, whether it's on the show or not. Like, I just view them as someone. So it's like, allow growth. And Hannah talked about this in our last podcast. Like, I've never ridden that obstacle yet.
Exactly.
But someday I will.
Yes.
Just because I haven't done it yet doesn't mean I'll never be able to.
It's so true.
Like, you had a really cool analogy about that, like of that limiting belief or looking towards the past on being able to do things.
Oh, yeah.
Share that?
Oh, yeah. About the, what was it? About like walking?
Yeah.
It wasn't about walking.
Yeah.
Like, you don't just say like, well, I've never done it before, so I can't do it kind of thing. Like,
I've never walked before. I can't do that. Yeah,
exactly. And it's like, well, dang, you got to like fall down and do it and try again. And
that you have to try. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You're meant for that. You're supposed to do that. So give yourself the grace and go through all the falls and all the stumbles, pick yourself up and keep learning.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. It's when I kind of thought about it like that, I'm like, oh yeah, that is true. Like,
oh, I've never walked. I guess I'm not meant to do it.
Yeah. I guess I can't do it. Can you imagine being like a little toddler or whatever? Be like, well, I can't do it. Like, I've never done it before, so I guess I'm not going to try. I'm just going to army crawl the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I mean,
goes to able body, there's a lot of circumstances, but it's a principle. We get it.
Yeah. And I think too, it makes me think about, and I've done this too before, of looking to the past, but then also looking to the people around me. So sometimes for me, it's like, oh, my parents didn't do that, so I can't do that. Like, it's not in my, whatever, in my heritage or my bloodlines, because, well, they didn't do that, so that's not going to be possible for me. So I think looking to the past and then also looking, that's why I feel like it's so important to have people who are growing around you, because when we see those people are doing those things, it really can help us. At least it has helped me to see what's possible for myself.
Yeah. I kind of, one of the things about me when I look back on that too is, we moved back to St. Louis so I could finish school and everything. And I had my kind of like what we're talking about, I had my sights set on a certain degree and a kind of working in a certain field. And over the years, things kind of changed, like I was still working towards that. And then, we found out we were pregnant and things changed, but I'm not pursuing that degree currently, but I'm still operating very closely to that capacity, with the new position and everything. So it's like, you have to give yourself grace. You have to allow changes. And just because you have to make a little change in course doesn't mean that you're not still going to end up doing what you're doing. Like, I heard a really cool analogy about it, like plan B, C, and D are still plan A. It's just a different way to get there, because I'm still have the focus and like plan A, accomplish this. And then, well, if I run into something, well, plan B. It was like, well, it's still kind of plan A. It's just, I'm going to go a little bit different route to and get there.
Yeah. I like that. It's not just stops here. I didn't get it. It's like, no, wait, there's other ways to get there. It's kind of like,
it's like, oh, I didn't see this. This was just, like we said, when we were looking at the picture, when it's so far out, it's all blurry and not filled in and definitive lines. So that's this, like, oh, I'm going to have a little, detour. Yes.
And it makes me think a lot about, sometimes we talked about before, is like that growth and the fixed mindset. the Carol Dweck talks a lot about too, just of looking at life and our perspective and how do we look at X, Y, and Z, So yeah, I feel like that makes a big difference, or whatever, A, B, and C.
Or X, Y, Z and A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any way you look at it, whatever letters of the alphabet you want to use, you can.
Yeah, exactly. And then I kind of think about like, okay, so yeah, I want to be so-and-so, or I want to become this in my future. Like, how do I get there? What do I do? Like, what are the nuts and bolts behind that? And I feel like everything I've ever seen or read or just have digested talks a lot about just thinking about like whatever it is you want to be, whatever it is you want to become. Really like, a lot of it is like envisioning it. So it's like, if I want to become someone who, is successful, or I want to become more of an organized person, like a lot of that too is, I think speaking it, that, that those are things, qualities that you possess, or start to look at, maybe those people around you, or, people you've heard of that, like are really organized. Like I think of that, I'm drawing a blank on her name. The gal who's really popular with all the organization right now.
Yeah, the declutter.
Yes, and
I forget.
Marie Kondo.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, so almost like, it's, man, I want to be more organized, but it's just not a part of me. It's like, well, then let me look to other people who are more organized. But to speak that into your life too, that, I'm becoming more organized. I can be organized. Like speaking a lot of those positive things. Like I've heard of it kind of like an actor, who's getting ready to go, audition for his lines or whatever
Role.
Their role. Yeah. It's like you have to really embody that script to really make it come forward and
right.
to make it seem believable and all that too. So almost taking on those qualities that you imagine somebody with this skill set or this desire to be would show up as. Mm-hmm. And I know I feel like I'm probably making it sound so simplistic, but I mean, there's a lot to it, but I feel like that's a great way to get started, perhaps. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're simplifying the idea and the concepts of it. But yeah, don't underestimate the actual challenge and the actual work that needs to go into it, because when we're comparing ourselves with, like you said, the masters of organizers or the masters of anything that you say, I would like to become my version of that, like, don't underestimate the amount of hours and work and difficulty that went into that,
right.
But allow yourself some grace and practice. I mean, there's the 10,000 hour rule for a reason. Like, I mean, it was discovered because that's about how long it takes to master a skill. About 10 years, about 10,000 hours. So give yourself some grace. Like, you can get there. Just because you can't do it today doesn't mean you'll never be able to do it. Like, you quite literally could be a master organizer, a master mountain biker through technical terrain, like Hannah was talking, her growth and trajectory of that, or, starting your own business, or, being a parent, like we look at, and just because you are a parent and put 10 years in doesn't mean you're a good one. Or just because you ride a mountain bike over technical terrain for 10 years doesn't mean you're skilled or mastered. You have to do the diligent and hard work. You have to put in real work.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I think too, just sometimes asking ourselves, those questions, of, what are the thoughts I'm having if I'm wanting to show up as this type of person or become this person? What are the things I'm feeling? What are the things I'm doing? Almost just like really writing yourself a script of how you want to be, and show up in the world too. I think can really be helpful. Mm-hmm. I know, like, this probably sounds so silly, but it just like came to me. I remember, like, in high school, some of my girlfriends, I would always just be like, gosh, they're like the best gift givers. Like, they think of it all. It's like they're always, not just giving the gift card, which that's fine if that's you, but for me, I wanted something like a little more like meaningful, like when I gave gifts. And I just remember always being like, gosh, how do they do that? How do they do that? Like, I want to be like that. And it was just, I don't know. I just remember, like, over time, it was like things came to me more because I kept saying, like, I want to be a thoughtful gift giver. And I want to like do things like I've seen them do, because I see the smiles that it brings on the people's faces that they bring those gifts to.
So what'd you do? You looked for opportunities to gift in advance, right? Because now you were keen to it, instead of like, because in my mind, generally when you're the, like you said, quote unquote, the gift card giver, typically it's a last minute idea. It's like, oh, you like iTunes, or oh, you like music, here's an iTunes card, or oh, here's a Visa gift card, awesome, thanks. Like, not a lot of thought goes into that. But if you're like, I know you and you like this, or you're missing this, or you were just talking about that, like, that's the thoughtfulness. And if we also look back, gift giving is one of the 5 love languages. Some people just are just a little more inclined and naturally gifted at being thoughtful and gift giving. But
I agree. And I think too, had I kept myself in that mindset of like, I'm just not a good gift giver, that's just an area that I, totally fumble in every single time. I think if I would have kept holding that like thought pattern about myself, I think I would still be giving gift cards all the time, which, wasn't what I wanted, wasn't the way I wanted to be. I wanted more for myself. That's just like a small like example, but I think it really did help me surrounding myself with those people, kind of picking up on like, what are they doing differently? Like, how are they knowing that this person wants this and not just doing the typical gift card thing? And it was just, it showed me, hey, you can be thoughtful, even if you feel like that's just not me. I'm just not a thoughtful person. It's like, well, no, you can be if that's something you want.
That's doing something on purpose. That's being thoughtful and putting a lot of energy and effort into something. Like, like gift giving or anything. Like, you even going back to organizing. Like, if I look at a space and just instead of just like putting stuff away, it's like putting it away with intention and purpose. Like, where does this go best? How does the flow of it, what do I use the most? And that's kind of the skill of the mastery part, like a master gift giver. Like, I don't know if that's a thing. I guess it could be, right? Because it's purpose and intention and thoughtfulness goes into it.
Yeah, it does. And I'm curious to ask you, like, what do you think about then people maybe who are listening now, even thinking like, well, I want to be X, Y, and Z, or I want to run the 4-minute mile or whatever. And it's
okay, like those. The word outlandish came to my mind, but that's not necessarily what it has to be. So things that maybe are outside the realm of possible.
Right. Yeah. Like, because then I think about that side of it too, but then who knows, could it be possible if you put your mind to it? There's just so many, I don't know, you could totally get tangled in that for a while.
Okay. Let's take the typical couch to 5K to want to run a marathon, and then looking at getting faster and everything. Obviously, a 4-minute mile is a little different than training for that. Would be different than training for a marathon. But it might not be within your genetics because at a certain point we get past running as a skill and running as a talent, where we actually hit some genetic barriers on the physiology side. But you may never hit 4-minute mile if you've never run before and you don't know what your genetic capabilities are, and you're like, I want to run a 4-minute mile. Okay, that's great. Let's start training. It's not going to happen this year or probably even next year, but let's set a path, and maybe we never hit 4, but maybe you get under 5 for your fastest 1 mile. Like, and maybe right now it's like 9.5 or 10-minute 1 mile.
Gosh,
as your fastest, and you're laying on the ground, sucking air afterwards. But like, how accomplished are you at breaking 5 and heading towards 4? And how good do you feel about yourself because you put in all the work? You might have missed. It goes back to the Les Brown quote, like, aim for the moon, like on the 4-minute mile. But even if you miss, you land amongst the stars of doing excellent things, because you are now in a each minute barrier that you break, you get I don't want to say elite, but a smaller number of people can do that. So reward yourself with that accomplishment and keep working. And, as you move towards that 4 minute, it's going to get, exponentially harder to shave time off. But, if you stick with it and you get creative about different areas of your life that maybe are affecting that goal, like I never thought about getting more sleep or changing my diet or moving to different elevation or humidity level, like there's a lot of things. Like, how bad do I really want it? You kind of like Hannah was sharing, how bad does she really want these goals that she said, like she's put herself in the prime position to achieve her goals.
Right.
And it is up to her and her hard work and to achieve them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to run that 4, it may not be in your genetic ability to do that, but what is your genetic limitation?
How are you going to know if you don't actually try, kind of thing? Yeah.
It's like, well, I probably can't. Go find out. Don't end up in your final resting place and have regrets. Running a 4-minute mile may or may not be a silly thing to talk about here, but there's some big things, like maybe doing some big accomplishments, or I don't know, you could start a nonprofit, you could change the world in a certain aspect. Like, if it's something on I'll never change the world, but like, you've also mentioned the starfish thing, right? Like, you might not be able to save all the starfish, but the ones that you do save and throw back in the ocean, you made
difference for those ones.
Yeah. I mean, it was everything for those. So don't sell yourself short.
No, that is very true. And it makes me think about, there was something I had read before about a coach who was working with somebody, and this like 80-year-old woman, as I recall, was saying that like her goal was that she wanted to, her big overarching goal was to climb Mount Everest. And in his head, he's thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, right, that's never going to happen.
At 80 years old?
Yes. Yeah. And was kind of like, oh gosh, maybe I should like break it to her, like, hey, let's work on something else.
Not going to happen, lady.
Yeah, exactly. And
at least in his mind, right?
At least in his mind, right. And as I read on, it was basically like, she never got to that point. Like, she did not climb Mount Everest, but like the journey that she went through to get to that point, to try to really strive for that, was like life-changing for her and incredible for her. So it's like she still learned a lot about herself and what's possible for her through that, and was forever grateful that she'd set that goal, even though it didn't manifest. It showed her other things about herself.
So she would have listened and said, okay, and then never climbed anything, never put a foot forward towards that goal. Like, she would have missed out on so many wonderful experiences. And so what? She didn't actually climb this one named mountain, but she did a lot of wonderful things, and her life was forever changed for that. And she believed in herself, and she had intention, she had purpose. And I don't know. To me, I think that's way more than actually hitting goals sometimes.
I do too.
The first step. And changing that belief system about yourself. Like, you know what? I don't know what's possible, but I'm going to keep moving forward to find out.
Yeah, no, that's so true. It's kind of exciting when you think about it. Because I think about, like, sometimes I feel like this one comes to me sometimes too. When I went to get my master's in school social work, wasn't able to find a job. Nothing was working out. And I was just like so mad. I was like, Lord, why would you send me through all the schooling to only not be able to find a job? Like, what's going on here? And now when I look back, I'm like, thank you, because it got me here, and then it got me here because I didn't get that job there. And so it's just, I don't know. I just thought about that, but it just made me think how sometimes we think like this is our goal and this is the way it's going to end up. And then it goes on a different trajectory. And then it's like, wow, I'm really thankful because I learned a lot through this other process, and feel like this is more honoring of what I wanted to do.
I think that is exactly what in setting broad intention is about, and plan A, B, and C, and D kind of thing. Like, so you knew the first step, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times, I believe God ordains a lot of things and sets things in motion, and you don't get to find out like, this is why, this is where you will end up. It's just, this is the next stepping stone I'm uncovering for you.
Yes.
I want you to go to school of social work. And so in your mind, you're like, okay, so I'm going to be working here. I'm going to be doing this, but I'm going to just set course this way. And it's like, well, how about over here? Like, oh, I didn't even put that together. Okay. But, so you're still performing a lot of the things that's important to you.
Yes.
And you're still, but in a different capacity than if we were to look back, when you first applied for grad school.
No, it's very true.
So that's being present, saying yes to opportunities. I mean, I don't think say yes to everything. You have to weigh them and just say, okay, yeah, that sounds, and pray about it and things like that. But yeah, I think for me, that's the same thing. Like when we uprooted, quit my job and moved to St. Louis for school, it's like I'm doing currently different than what I envisioned.
Yes.
But now having gone through it with hindsight, it's like,
yeah, it's like,
that's
wow.
absolutely what was supposed to happen.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's so neat when you can look back at those things and be like, yep, those little God winks.
Yeah, very cool. I guess let's kind of start wrapping this up. And what are some big takeaways that you have from this conversation?
For me, it's it just really helped get some thoughts going around like, okay, who am I becoming? And, right now it's like top of mind for me is I'm becoming a mom, or I am a mom, and just thinking about the things that I want for our son to have, just the values that I want to like instill within him, and morals and all those things too. So like thinking about, how I can show up as the mom that does that and wants him to, value his relationship with the Lord. And just, that's a very important piece for me too. But an understanding that, I need to put those things, what I need to put first in my life so that I can become that kind of mom that I want to be, so that I can pass that on to our son too. So really just had me just kind of doing some of my own reflection on like what that looks like. 'Cause this is like a new chapter for us. So I still have some more, I feel like, thought work and journaling to do on that, to really start honing in on, who I am becoming and what I want that script to look like. The thoughts I want to have, the feelings I want to have, and the actions I'm going to take from all that too.
Right. So this is that process now where you have that black and white kind of fuzzy photo of who you want to become. And over the years, I mean, literally years of being a mom and walking through it and making mistakes and learning and growing, you will start to fill in the lines and darken in the lines and then add color and vibrancy to your photo of what it looks like for Anina, the mom.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
But just like the gift giving, you're brand new to this. You've never been a mom before.
Right.
So allowing grace and keep setting that intention of like, this is the mom I want to be. This is the mom I would like to be, because one, it feels good to me. It feels right. And it's the right thing to do by him. Mm-hmm. And I'm very much in the same boat of like, this is the father I want to be. Like, so don't discredit other dads and their experience, and moms for that matter. But I weigh everything and I run it through the filter of the dad that I want to be.
Yes.
If it seems worthy advice, I'll put it in the jar. It doesn't mean I'm going to do it verbatim, because I want it to be my experience, but I also want to use wisdom in that and learn from those that have gone before me. Mm-hmm. And so very, very same, like in all things of like how to discipline and how to educate and how to teach emotional things and how to teach.
Yes.
And just how to teach and how to be with a child, like those are all things that are very important to me that I want to incorporate in my dad life, and how to be a dad and then how to give self-care to me, mm-hmm. and how to be a good husband while being a father, while being,
Yeah. No, That's
So these are all things that are very new to me, but I have very clear intention of what I think it looks like.
Do you feel like kind of getting started on writing that script of like what you want that?
Oh yeah,
what you
but
want that to look
very
like?
much the same thing. Like lines are not
Kinda
filled
blurry,
in.
yeah.
It's blurry. It's black and white. There's not a lot of clarity to it yet, but it's a very clear course. Like I know
Yes.
where I'm headed with it because I know the father I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know some of the big values and the big key things, cornerstones of fatherhood that I want, and what that looks like day to day, what the conversations are going to be with him,
Mm-hmm.
or even pre-conversation when he's before talking and stuff like that. I don't know that. That's going to unfold, and that's being mindful. That's being present. That's being in the moment with the intention of what kind of father I want to be.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's huge. That's great. Sounds like there's a lot of some takeaways for ourselves and just like some reflection we've had as just thinking about even this
and knowing that it's
conversation.
not going to be perfect, and there will be a lot of mistakes and a lot of errors from all parties, but
Uh-huh.
it's just as long as the undercurrent is love and the undercurrent is growth, and we just want the best for each other. And like I want to have a wonderful relationship with him and with you, and I want to have a forever relationship. I don't want to kick him out of my house when he's 18. I want to be there for him forever.
Right.
I want to have a friendship as well as a proper father-son relationship,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I don't know. That's just my thoughts. Like it's not earth-shattering. I think all good dads want to aspire to that. So
Yeah, but it's kind of like you said, you're setting these intentions and these cornerstones that you want to work towards, and I think that's important,
Yeah.
to help get you where you want to be. So
very cool. Thank you for spending a little bit of time chatting with me about who you want to become and reflecting on these last 9 months of
Yes.
pregnancy. It's been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I've enjoyed it, and I can't wait to meet this guy and look forward to the next 9 months and years to come after that.
Yes, likewise. Well, thanks for having this conversation with me today too. It was good.
So I know we're getting a lot of buzz from our last episode. So for all the new listeners, we welcome you and thank you for sticking around and checking us out.
Yes.
And so please leave a review. It does our show a lot of good. Like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff, all that's out there,
Yes.
It really does. Like, I know hear that a lot from if you are listening to other podcasts and stuff, but it really does do us a big thing, like it moves us through we get a lot more listenership and stuff like that, and makes us more visible to other potential listeners. So we appreciate that. You can check us out on Instagram at Sound Mind Strategies.
Yes.
And then we're also on Facebook. And then, so if you like us on Facebook, you can ask to join our Sound Mind Strategies tribe, where we can continue conversation. And I know we forgot to talk about this with Hannah, but like if you do have any questions for Hannah, we can carry that on in the Facebook group, or we can connect you if it's something that you want to speak with her about.
Definitely.
So,
Yes.
we thank you, and we will see you in the next one.
Yes. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.
Peace.